These are the top 10 most affordable states to buy a house in America. Areas of the country where you could still purchase a home for less than $200,000 and where your monthly payment will be less than $1,500 a month after mortgage, taxes, and insurance. Many of the states on this list are actually going through a revival of sorts due to their affordability. More and more Americans are now choosing to move there because of just how affordable home prices are. Starting with our number 10 most affordable state to buy a house. This is an area where the typical value of a house, according to data from Zillow, is only $226,000, and your monthly payment would run $1,400 a month to buy a house in today's market in Alabama. Now, Alabama is about as south as it gets in America. It's very hot, it's very muggy, there's not a lot of healthy food options. However, before you disregard it, take a look at this house. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot home for only $254,000. This is actually a pretty nice home, and your monthly payment on this puppy, if you were to buy it at asking price, would be about $1,500 a month, with your property taxes only being $800 a year. That's right, everyone. $800 a year property taxes in Alabama. It has some of the lowest property taxes of any state in America, which is something that's now attracting lots of people to move to Alabama. With the state adding 36,000 people in 2023 to inbound migration, that was the second highest rate of inbound movement over the last 30 years. Now, our number 9 most affordable housing market to buy shares quite a few similarities with Alabama. It's also in the Southeast, and it also has fairly cheap home prices. You actually buy a house in this state and spend less than $1,300 a month on your monthly payment in Arkansas. However, the affordability of Arkansas really depends on where you buy. If you go up to the northwest part of the state in Fayetteville and Bentonville, the monthly payments run over $2,100 a month, while in Little Rock, you can buy a house for around $1,300 or $1,400. Like this 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,600 square feet, and it could definitely use a couple updates, but it's not a bad house. It's certainly livable, and it's listed at a price that's only actually 14% above what it sold for in 2021. Actually, it isn't even that much more than what it sold for in 2017. So the sellers here, they're not trying to make a killing. What I actually like about this property is that it's in a good area. It's in a zip code where the median household income is $118,000 a year with a fairly low 4% poverty rate. And so I think one question that's going to be on a lot of your minds as a home buyer or an investor, just someone looking to move, is, am I moving to a city in a neighborhood that's safe and that represents, good long-term growth potential? And this is certainly something to think about with some of the states on this list, because these are areas that maybe for the last 20, 30 years, we're a bit behind the other areas in America in terms of economic development, in terms of growth, in terms of wealth. But now today, a lot of these states are starting to catch up, and it's this catch up which is pulling more and more people to move to these areas. Like in Arkansas, the state added 22,000 people in 2023, which was more than the growth of Virginia, Idaho, Colorado, Washington, and Nevada. With high migration figures also being a trait of our number 8 most affordable state to buy a house in America. Over 20,000 net people moved to this state in 2023, and it's an area that's actually added people almost every year going back the last decade, according to data on Reventure app. This state would be Indiana. Now, what's Indiana known for? Basketball and cornfields. And if you don't like either of those things, you might not like moving to Indiana. However, the affordability component of this state is attracting more and more people because your dollar in terms of buying a house or renting an apartment in Indiana goes pretty far, particularly in a major metro like Indianapolis. You can see that in Indianapolis, the typical value of a house is $276,000, which is actually a bit higher than some of the other areas on this list. However, within Indianapolis, there's some very affordable pockets, particularly towards the northeastern part of the metro, where I was able to find a house currently listed on the market for $240,000. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2,000 square feet. It looks pretty nice, everyone. Now, your payment on this puppy would be $1,500 a month, and in 3 days, it has 415 saved. So this house is probably going to sell quickly, and one of the reasons why is because it's in a great school district. Heading down to the great schools ratings here on Zillow, you can see the local high school is a 9 out of 10, while the elementary school is an 8 out of 10. And so you could be in a top school district area in a high income zip code and still spend less than $250,000 on a house in Indianapolis that looks pretty nice. I mean, that's compelling affordability. And it's one reason why I think the states that are going to perform best in this housing downturn are going to be the affordable ones. However, I actually think our number 7 most affordable housing market is one that a lot of you are probably going to pass over for looking at moving and buying a house. Because this is a state that actually still loses a lot of people despite its affordability, and it has a whole host of other issues. Where would I be talking about? That would be Louisiana. You can see Louisiana lost 20,000 people last year due to net migration, and it loses people almost every single year. You can see the big drop that occurred in '06 due to Hurricane Katrina. You got to deal with hurricanes if you're in Louisiana. And you got to deal actually with declining home prices, because prices in Louisiana, they've been going down over the last year, particularly in New Orleans, everyone, where we can see over the last year, we have zip codes where prices are down as much as 17% or even 13% over the last year. In fact, in this zip code 70123 in New Orleans, I found a affordably priced house. It's a 4-bed, 3-bath, 1,800 square feet for 240 grand. They actually did a recent renovation. It looks pretty nice, but they're having trouble selling it. They've already cut the price by $35,000, even though the monthly payment on this thing would only be $1,400 a month. Now, interestingly, our number 6 most affordable housing market is another state that also struggles to attract people. This is the only other state on the list that actually lost people, according to data from the US Census Bureau. This is a state that's actually in Tornado Alley, right in the middle of America in the Great Plains. That would be Kansas. Now in Kansas, the basic housing market stats are very affordable, typical home value of $223,000. However, the state of Kansas still has difficulty attracting people to move in, which is why cities like Topeka, Kansas, the state capital, are now offering movers $15,000 cash to move to Topeka in Shawnee County. Get up to $10,000 in funds for renting the first year, up to $15,000 in funds for a home purchase. Then you'll also be eligible for another $5,000 in cash and maybe use however you choose. And there's some various requirements for this. But it's interesting to see that there's cities in some of these states that are now paying you to move there. I mean, $15,000 in Topeka, that could cover your down payment on a house like this. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, 950 square foot home. So this is kind of like a pseudo tiny home, but it was just renovated. It actually looks really, really nice. You can tell this is actually probably being used as an Airbnb right now based on how it's staged. But this isn't a bad house on a decent plot of land for $155,000. So if you were to move to Topeka, get the $15,000 cash reward, that could cover a 10% down payment on a house like this, where your monthly payment would be $850 a month. Crazy. Now, moving on, folks, to our top 5 most affordable states to buy a house. You're going to see the top half of this list because the affordability, it gets even better. You're actually not going to believe just how cheap our most affordable state is. I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes. But first, let's talk about number 5, because this state is actually a personal favorite of mine. I almost moved there a couple years ago. Long-term viewers to my channel can probably guess what this state is already. It's an affordable area that's actually growing really, really fast. Oklahoma. Now let me show you guys what I like about Oklahoma's housing market. The typical monthly payment in the state is $1,330 a month if you were to buy a house today. Now, the median household income across the state is $63,000, which is below the US average. However, because the home ownership costs are so cheap, that means that a local buyer in Oklahoma can still buy a house in today's market and only spend 25% of their gross income on their purchase. And they can do that in actually some really nice neighborhoods. This is a 3-bed, 2-bath house on the market for $230,000 in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is about 20 miles north of Oklahoma City. And in Edmond, the schools are actually really good. You can see the grade school ratings for this neighborhood are 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10. And you can get access to those good schools by buying a decent house for $230,000 with approximately a $1,400 a month payment. And so I think a lot of people might have the perspective that states like Oklahoma and Alabama and Kansas, that they're just all, flyover country and there's no nice places. However, that's not really true, everyone. Like, I've spent a lot of time in these different states, and there's lots of nice neighborhoods that I think a lot of people would like living in if they just gave them a chance. And more people are giving states like Oklahoma a chance. With Oklahoma adding 32,000 people to its population from net migration in the most recent year, you can see the migration into Oklahoma has boomed over the last couple years, with Oklahoma actually now ranking as the 9th highest growth state in America due to inbound migration. And so If you're a home buyer and investor trying to pick the next place to live, you got to look at this data. You got to understand the areas that are affordable and how many people are moving into these areas. And fortunately, you have the ability to do that on Reventure app, which is the program that I'm using in this video. The data can be accessed by going to www.reventure.app to find the areas that are most affordable and highest growing. And if you want to zoom out, just hit the metro or state toggle so you can do more macro level research. And towards the end of this video, I'm going to explain to you guys how you can access that data for yourself right now. But first, let's finish off this list because you guys are going to want to see the top 4. We got some real affordability here in these top 4 states, particularly in our number 4 most affordable housing market to buy in right now, Kentucky. Now, here's where things start to get very affordable. The typical home value in Kentucky is only $201,000. And you can see the largest area in Kentucky by far is the Louisville, Jefferson County metro area. This is where most people who move to Kentucky, this is where they move to buy a house. However, also pay attention to Lexington, Kentucky, a little bit east. It actually is an area that's starting to grow a little bit. And then you also might want to pay some attention to Bowling Green, close to the border of Tennessee. This is where Bowling Green University is. It's actually the highest migration area in Kentucky, growing its population by over 1% due to inbound migration. There's still some definite affordability here. Like on this 3-bed, 3-bath, 1,600 square feet on the market for $200,000. Now, folks, yeah, I mean, the interiors here, I don't know what's going on with that wood. You might want to do some upgrades after you buy it, but in the backyard, there's an accessible dwelling unit that potentially could be fixed up as an Airbnb. It's also on a 0.8 acre lot, which is a really big lot, where your monthly payment would be less than $1,000 a month if you were purchased with a mortgage. Now, our number 3 most affordable housing market is one where the home prices are about to get even cheaper, because the typical value of a house in this state is only $178,000. That's almost 50% below the US average. So if you buy a house in Mississippi, you're getting a big discount. However, there's a reason for that, because the median household income in Mississippi is only $56,000 a year. That's the lowest median household income in America. So quite literally, Mississippi is the poorest state in the country. And if you're a home buyer or real estate investor, you got to understand the risks that come along with that. It means that a lot of the homeowner population is going to be at a higher risk of foreclosure. It means that there's going to be more evictions. It means that there's some more potential downside in the event that we have a recession or economic downturn. Additionally, while Mississippi managed to add people in 2023 with positive migration of 2,000, most years it is losing people going back the last decade. So Mississippi tends to lose more people than move in, which is obviously a negative for real estate. Now, our number 2 most affordable housing market is an interesting one. It's different than Mississippi because the home prices here, they're actually a bit higher. However, in relation to the local incomes, home prices here are actually the second cheapest in America. And so when you think about affordability, everyone, you have to think about the prices and the mortgage payments in relation to the income levels, because that ultimately tells you what the true affordability is. And in Iowa, our second most affordable housing market, the typical home value is $214,000, while the median income is $74,000, meaning that the state has a 2.9 home value to income ratio, which is super cheap. In comparison, in a state like California, the home value to income ratio is 8.2. So it's literally 3 times more expensive in California. And there's good reasons for that. California has great weather. There isn't much space to build. Everyone dreams of moving to California at some point in their life. However, not as many people dream about moving to Iowa, especially not to a metro like Cedar Rapids, which is in the eastern part of Iowa. And in Cedar Rapids, the typical value of a house is $216,000, close to the state average. And in that metro, you can actually find some real value, like a 3-bed, 2-bath house, 1,600 square feet for less than $200,000. You can tell that this is another house that might need a little renovation at some point. However, for less than $200,000 in this market, it's not bad. Your monthly payment on this thing would be around $1,400 a month. To be in a zip code where the median household income is $138,000, almost double the US average. So this is a pretty wealthy area north of Cedar Rapids. Of course, everyone, as I kind of finished doing the research for this video and kind of figured out what the number 1 most affordable housing market is, which I'm going to tell you about in a second, I was kind of left thinking, like, how relevant is this information for some of you out there? Because I think on one hand, it's super interesting to know what the most affordable states are. And it's also interesting to know that a lot of these states are growing and actually have nice neighborhoods that you can buy affordable homes. However, it's not so easy to just pick up sticks and move to a new state, particularly if you don't know anyone. And so, my hope with this video is not necessarily to tell you guys like, oh, go move to these cities or states, but just to make you aware that there are some pockets of America that are still affordable. And if you want to research them more, I would suggest you go to www.reventure.app, where you can rank all the states, all the metros, and all the counties in America by their affordability. You can find the cheapest areas to buy a house. You can find the areas where home prices are going up the most and going down the most. And then you could do even more granular research and find the most affordable areas to buy that have the highest population growth combined with the highest income growth. And I was actually shocked that our number one most affordable housing market is in fact an area that's growing. This blew my mind because this state is known as being one of the most downtrodden in America. However, it's actually added people 3 years in a row, which I certainly didn't expect, and I don't think most of you expected. And no doubt, the reason that people are now moving to this state is because of how affordable it is. Where would I be talking about? That would be West Virginia. And to show you how affordable West Virginia is, everyone, stick with me through this. I'm actually going to show you not the cheapest house in West Virginia, but one of the more expensive houses I've found, because this is a 5-bed, 6-bath, 7,000 square foot mansion in Charleston, West Virginia. This is a beautiful home. This is one that, I mean, if I had any tie to Charleston, I mean, I'd probably like move here and buy this house. You can see it even has like a cool movie room and a pretty nice backyard and a great porch with a view. Well, this mansion is on the market for $687,000, which when I compare that to what I see in like Nashville where I live, 687,000 doesn't even get you anywhere close to this. So if you had a little extra money, you have a decent income, you can live in a mansion in West Virginia. And West Virginia, it's another state that's paying people to move there. They have a program called Ascend West Virginia where you can get paid $12,000 to move there. But of course, everyone, there's another 40 states that I didn't cover in this video, so head to www.reventure.app right now. When you do, you definitely want to check out the filters tool here on the top right. This is going to allow you to filter different states and metros that best meet your home buying criteria. You can access those filtering tools under a premium plan, which costs $39 a month.